Today we'll have a talk on the meaning of this special occasion, followed by a continuation of our study on Light on the Path. Next Sunday, the first Sunday of the new quarter, we will have a talk from the ULT-DC podium on the foundation of ethics. You are invited to join us in person or virtually at this Google Meet website. The Declaration of ULT.
I'd be happy to read it.
Okay.
Okay, the ULT Declaration. The policy of this lodge is independent devotion to the cause of theosophy, without professing attachment to any theosophical organization. It is loyal to the great founders of the theosophical movement, but does not concern itself with dissensions or differences of individual opinion. The work it has on hand and the end it keeps in view are too absorbing and too lofty to leave it the time or inclination to take part in side issues. That work and that end is the dissemination of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of theosophy and the exemplification and practice of those principles through a truer realization of the self, a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. It holds that the unassailable basis for union among theosophists, wherever and however situated, is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching, and therefore has neither constitution, bylaws, nor officers, the sole bond between its associates being that basis. And it aims to disseminate this idea among theosophists in the furtherance of unity. It regards as theosophists all who are engaged in the true service of humanity, without distinction of race, creed, sex, condition, or organization. And it welcomes to its association all those who are in accord with its declared purposes and who desire to fit themselves, by study and otherwise, to be the better able to help and teach others. The true theosophist belongs to no cult or sect, yet belongs to each and all.
Thank you. And we'll touch on the three fundamentals.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So the secret doctrine establishes three fundamental propositions. The first one is the statement is the metaphysical one absolute, and it talks about an omnipresent, eternal, boundless, and immutable principle on which all speculation is impossible because it transcends human thought, as in the normal common sense of the word. It is regarded by Mandukya as unspeakable, unthinkable, and because of its universal or absolute nature, it is regarded as beingness, is described as beingness rather than being, and is beyond all thought and speculation. So in reality, it is also symbolized by the term the great breath. The second fundamental assertion of the secret doctrine is the absolute universality of the law of periodicity. So it talks about flux and reflux, ebb and flow, day and night, life and death, sleeping and waking. And in fact, it's one of those, it's a fundamental that can be easily grasped even by the uninitiated, because we go through the periodic cyclic effects all the time. The third fundamental proposition of secret doctrine it talks about the identity of all souls with the universal oversoul. And it describes the obligatory pilgrimage for every soul through the cycle of incarnation in accordance with cyclic and karmic law. And it states that in order for every divine spark or soul to acquire an independent or conscious existence, it has to have passed first through every elemental form of the phenomenal or the terrestrial world of the Manvantara, and then acquired individuality or consciousness, first by natural impulse, and then again consciously by self-induced and self-devised efforts, and as always checked by karma. And this enables the soul or spirit to, or entity, to ascend through all degrees of intelligence, from the lowest to the highest manas, from mineral to plant, all the way up to the holiest archangel, the Dhyani Buddhas. And it further states that that there's no privilege or special gifts in man, except for those won by his own ego through personal effort and long series of metempsychosis and reincarnations.
Thank you. Our devotional reading today is from the Voice of the Silence, starting on page 33. So kindly acts, and thou shalt reap their fruition. Inaction in a deed of mercy becomes an action in a deadly sin. Thus saith the sage. Shall thou abstain from action? Not so shall gain thy soul her freedom. To reach nirvana, one must reach self-knowledge, and self-knowledge is of loving deeds the child. Have patience, candidate, as one who fears no failure, courts no success. Fix thy soul gaze upon the star whose ray thou art, the flaming star that shines within the lightless depths of ever being, the boundless fields of the unknown. Have perseverance as one who doth forevermore endure. Thy shadows live and vanish. That which in thee shall live forever. That which in thee knows, for it is knowledge, is not a fleeting life. It is the man who was, that is, and will be, for whom the hour shall never strike. If thou wouldst reap sweet peace and rest, disciple, sow with the seeds of merit the fields of future harvest, except those of birth. Step out from sunlight and shade to make more room for others. The tears that water the parched soil of pain and sorrow bring forth the blossoms and the few fruits of common retribution. Out of the furnace of man's life and its black smoke, winged flames arise, flames purified that soaring onward, neath the karmic eye, weave in the end the fabric glorified of the three vestures of the path. These vestures are the Manakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Dharmakaya robes sublime. And now for the day's talk on the meaning of Easter.
Welcome, friends. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, I'm seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Good.
Okay. I think there's a way to make it as a slideshow, but let's just stick with that. Okay, welcome, friends. The meaning of Easter and rebirth. Easter is a festival of rebirth or resurrection. And though many celebrate Easter as the resurrection of the physical body of Jesus, Theosophy indicates what Easter really symbolizes. It is not the resurrection of matter, but the resurrection from matter, the resurrection of spirit from the depths of matter, and of the resurrection of spirit from all material beliefs and surroundings. In short, it stands for the emancipation of the soul from the earthly and material world. Christians also celebrate Easter in memory of the rescue of their Master Jesus from the grasp of death. And though they erroneously believe that the material body was revived, what they are celebrating, albeit in a degree of ignorance, is the great spiritual truth that there is no death. Life goes on after the death of the body, and not just after one body, but after and in between many, many incarnations. Our consciousness persists from life to life. In theosophical teachings, at the death of the physical body, there is not only a change of body, but also a change in the seat of consciousness. At death, the physical body is exchanged for a heavenly Devachanic body. And this body consists of a much finer material essence than that of the gross physical body. Likewise, at death, the day-to-day earth plane consciousness, which is usually centered in the body, is exchanged for a heaven-like Devachanic consciousness. Where there is consciousness, there is a vehicle or body suited for it. And that's whether in a body or after death. In theosophy, we know that the after-death state of Devachan is not a new permanent state, but it succeeds the death of the physical body and is really a period of rest and assimilation for the being to absorb the lessons from the life just lived. In Devachan, the highest aspirations of the soul are realized in a dream-like state of bliss, and it is the heaven most religions speak of. In theosophy, it's widely recognized that one life is not enough for us to learn all that is required to progress on the wheel of life. We are evolving towards the next stage of evolution to become a fully incarnated manasa, or what we might call in our ignorance a god if we were to meet one. What the Easter holiday attempts to demonstrate is not that death was vanquished by the Son of God. It indicates that life continues after death. Life or consciousness is eternal, but we can't live forever in the same body because it wears out. So a change of body is required, and this brings with it a change of consciousness and circumstance. The permanent part of us that goes from one state of consciousness to another, or from one embodied life to another, is an obligatory pilgrimage, an evolutionary arc. Theosophy admits of no special privileges in man other than those won through personal effort and experience. As the voice of the silent so well encapsulates, to live and reap experience, the mind needs breadth and depth and points to draw it towards the diamond soul. Seek not those points in Maya's realm, the physical plane, but soar beyond illusions, search the eternal and the changeless Sat, which is the one eternal and absolute reality, mistrusting fancy's false suggestions. If we are to take Jesus's life metaphorically and symbolically, then the other events of his life can also be represented with a hidden spiritual significance. Christmas, or the birth of Jesus, represents the birth of spirit on the plane of incarnation. The exalted spirit takes up its abode in a body of flesh and abnegates the self, so that the light of the world can be personified for all of mankind to see. The Epiphany represents the manifestation and the establishment of this new light to the world. The wise men who saw the birth of Jesus in the stars made their journey to be a witness to the shining of the true light that lighteth everyone that is born into the world. The Epiphany represents the uplifting of that light so that those who can see may come to witness it. The period of Lent represents the struggle of truth over darkness. It's a wrestling with the adversary, which are the passions, desires, the lower nature, and anything that can throw the aspirant off the path. It shadows forth a constantly recurring struggle. Either one is thrown off the path or one conquers the adversary and becomes one with the path and continues progressing to spiritual enlightenment. Good Friday represents the climax and consummation of the struggle. The end that awaits all such conflict in this world is death, but it also demonstrates the triumph of sacrifice. Easter then finishes that cycle and stands as the resurrection, the ascendancy of spirit over death and matter, the perfected life, the risen life, the glorified life of spirit. The spirit freed from the body, its earthly encumbrance, and freed from the matter which attempted but failed to keep it encased. This completes a metaphorical journey and signifies the return of the spirit to its home. This time of year, Easter, is full of occult symbolism and meaning, so we'll explore some of that symbolism. First of all, embedded in the word Easter is the word east. In the book of Ezekiel, it says, "The glory of God comes by way of the east." The sun, also the symbol of spirit or deity, rises in the east, and it is this sun which is the life-giving element of the physical and spiritual worlds. The color associated with Easter is yellow gold, again, the color of the sun, which coincidentally increases during this time of the year in the Northern Hemisphere. Another symbol with extensive meanings is the egg, a very popular symbol of Easter, incarnation, and new life. In the section of the Secret Doctrine on the Mundane Egg, we read that the mundane egg is a universal symbol. The egg was incorporated as a sacred sign in the cosmogony of every people of the earth and was revered both on account of its form and its inner mystery. From the earliest mental conceptions of man, it was known as that which represented most successfully the origin and secret of being. The gradual development of the imperceptible germ within the closed shell, the inward working without any apparent outward interference of force, which from a latent nothing produced an active something, needing naught save heat, and which having gradually evolved into a concrete living creature, broke its shell, appearing to the outward senses of all as a self-generated and self-created being, must have been a standing miracle from the beginning. The secret teaching explains the reason for this reverence by the symbolism of the prehistoric ages. The first cause had no name in the beginning. Later, it was pictured in the fancy of the thinkers as an ever-invisible, mysterious bird that dropped an egg into chaos, which egg becomes the universe. Hence, Brahma, the creative deity in the Hindu tradition, was called Kalahansa, the swan in space and time. He became the swan of eternity who lays at the beginning of each Mahamanvantara a golden egg. It typified the great circle, itself a symbol for the universe and its spherical bodies. The second reason for its having been chosen as the symbolical representation of the universe and of our Earth was its form. It was a circle and a sphere, and the oviform shape of our globe must have been known from the beginning of symbology since it was so universally adopted. The first manifestation of the cosmos in the form of an egg was the most widely diffused belief of antiquity. As is shown, it was a symbol adopted among the Greeks, the Syrians, Persians, and Egyptians. In the Egyptian ritual, Seb, the god of time and of the earth, is spoken of as having laid an egg, or the universe, an egg conceived at the hour of the great one of the dual force. The Egyptian god Ra is shown like Brahma, gestating in the egg of the universe. With the Greeks, the Orphic egg is described by Aristophanes and was part of the Dionysiac and other mysteries, during which the mundane egg was consecrated and its significance explained. A similar account of the first aggregation of the elements in the form of an egg is given in the Indian Puranas as well. As said in the Vishnu Purana, intellect, Mahat, the unmanifested gross elements inclusive, formed an egg, and the Lord of the universe himself abided in it, in the character of Brahma. In that egg, O Brahman, were the continents, the seas and mountains, the planets and divisions of the universe, the gods, the demons, and mankind. Both in Greece and in India, the first visible male being who united in himself the nature of either sex abode in the egg and issued from it. This firstborn of the world was Dionysus with the Greeks, the god who sprang from the mundane egg and from whom the mortals and immortals were derived. Another representation of an egg is the universe itself, symbolized as an immaculate white disk within a dull black ground. Then the same disk appears with a central point, and this is the first differentiation, or the logos. The egg represents the cosmos in eternity, before the reawakening of still slumbering energy, the emanation of the word or logos in later systems. The point in the hitherto immaculate disk, space in eternity in pralaya, which is a rest, denotes the dawn of differentiation. It is the point in the mundane egg, the germ within the latter, which will become the universe, the all, the boundless periodical cosmos. This germ being latent and active periodically and by turns, showing the law of cycles in its ever-recurring periodicity. The one circle is divine unity, from which all proceeds, whither all returns. Its circumference, a forcibly limited symbol in view of the limitation of the human mind, indicates the abstract, ever incognizable presence, and its plane, the universal soul, although the two are really one. Only the face of the disk being white and the ground all around black shows clearly that this plane is the only knowledge, dim and hazy though it still is, that is attainable by man. It is on this plane that the Manvantaric manifestations begin, for it is in this soul that slumbers during the pralaya, the divine thought, wherein lies concealed the plan of every future cosmogony and theogony. The simile of an egg also expresses the fact taught in occultism that the primordial form of everything manifested, from atom to globe, from man to angel, is spheroidal, the sphere having been with all nations the emblem of eternity and infinity, a serpent swallowing its tail. To realize the meaning, however, the sphere must be thought of as seen from its center. The field of vision or of thought is like a sphere whose radii proceed from oneself out in every direction and extends into space, opening up boundless vistas all around. It is the symbolical circle of Pascal and the Kabbalists, quote, whose center is everywhere and circumference nowhere, unquote, a conception which enters into the compound idea of this emblem. The mundane egg is then perhaps one of the most universally adopted symbols, highly suggestive as it is, equally in the spiritual, physiological, and cosmological sense. Therefore, it is found in every world theogony, where it is largely associated with the serpent symbol, being an emblem of eternity, infinitude, regeneration, and rejuvenation, as well as of wisdom. The mystery of apparent self-generation and evolution through its own creative power, repeating in miniature the process of cosmic evolution in the egg, both being due to heat and moisture under the efflux of the unseen creative spirit, justified fully the selection of this graphic symbol. The male creator, under whatever name, is always pictured springing forth from the virgin female, the immaculate root fructified by the ray, who, if versed in astronomy and natural sciences, can fail to see its suggestiveness. Kosmos, as receptive nature, is an egg fructified, yet left immaculate. Once regarded as boundless, it could have no other representation than a spheroid. The golden egg was surrounded by 7 natural elements: ether, fire, air, water. 4 ready, 3 secret is stated. It may be found stated in Vishnu Purana, where the elements are translated as envelopes and where a secret one is added. The winged globe. The egg was also the symbol of life and immortality and eternity, and also the glyph of the generative matrix. In conjunction with the hawk, the symbol of Osiris' sun, the symbol is dual. It relates to both lives, the mortal and the immortal. In Kircher's Oedipus Egyptiacus, one can see on the papyrus engraved in it an egg floating above a mummy. This is the symbol of hope, the hope and promise of a second birth for the Osirified dead. His soul, after purification, will gestate in this egg of immortality to be reborn from it into a new life on earth. For this egg in the esoteric doctrine is the Devachan, the abode of bliss. The winged globe then is but another form of the egg and has the same significance, which relates to the rebirth of man as well as to his spiritual regeneration. The Christians have fully adopted the symbol and see in it a commemoration of life eternal, of salvation and resurrection. This is found in and corroborated by the time-honored custom of exchanging Easter eggs. From the egg of the pagan druid to the red Easter egg of the Slavonian peasant, a cycle has passed. And yet, whether in civilized Europe or among the abject savages of Central America, we find the same archaic, primitive thought, if only we search for it and do not disfigure the original idea of the symbol. On every level, the egg eternally regenerates. Virginal, it embodies the power of becoming developed through fecundation. The human egg is the female reproductive element. It's larger than the other bodily cells and is made up of a nucleus surrounded by cytoplasm, plasma membrane, chorion, albumin layers, and shell membrane. These coats are added successively as the egg passes down the oviduct. The egg is initially formed by materials that have migrated into the special environment of the ovaries. Only in this environment do those primordial germ cells become eggs. The egg contains within itself all the essentials for development, leaving the sperm the role of activating an already prepared system. The coats of the egg are distinctive in the human, and it is the case that a close, if not always obvious, relation exists between the cellular features of the egg and the life history to which the species to which it belongs. The protoplasmic framework of the egg sets the structural framework of the new individual. Using the method of analogy and correspondence, this is a potent axiom when applied to the process of cosmic birth. The next symbol associated with Easter is birds, and often connected with the spiritual idea we touched on it earlier, is the idea of a sacred bird that drops the egg into the waters of space or chaos. Just as there is the Chinese bird Tian bird, so there is Seb, the Egyptian chicken who gave birth to the egg of Ra, the sun. In the Hindu tradition, the swan of eternity lays a golden egg at the beginning of each Mahamanvantara. This swan is the sacred Kalahansa, the word. Its egg is the word made manifest. The raven is sometimes connected with the egg symbol of generation and primeval wisdom, as illustrated by Odin's black ravens fluttering around the goddess Saga in the Norse mythology, or Noah releasing the black raven after the great deluge, or Pralaya. The egg is also, because it's a circle, associated with the 0 or decimal. We know that the decimal system must have been known to mankind of the earliest archaic ages, since the whole astronomical and geometrical portion of this secret sacerdotal language was built upon the number 10, or the combination of the male and female principles, the 1 and the 0. And since the pyramid of Cheops is built upon the measures of this decimal notation, or rather upon the digits in their combinations with the 0, The next sort of symbol associated with Easter is resurrection. And from the esoteric character of the Gospels, HPB wrote that Christ, the true esoteric Savior, is no man, but the divine principle in every human being. He who strives to resurrect the spirit crucified in him by his own terrestrial passions. He who has the strength to roll back the stone of matter from the door of his own inner sanctuary. He has the risen Christ in him. Now, the mystery of the name Christ from Christos, now supposed to have been taught by Jesus of Nazareth, was identical with that which from the first had been communicated to those who are worthy, meaning those who were pledged and initiated into the secrets of occult science. We may learn from the gospel according to Luke that the worthy were those who had been initiated into the mysteries of the gnosis and who were accounted worthy to attain that resurrection from the dead in this life, or those who knew they could die no more, being equal to the angels as sons of God and sons of the resurrection. In other words, they were the great adepts of whatever religion, and the words apply to all those who, without being initiates, strive and succeed through personal effort to live the life and to attain the naturally ensuing spiritual illumination, and blending their personality, the Son, with their individual divine spirit, the God within them, or the Father. So this resurrection idea was universal and can never be monopolized by Christianity. It's the spiritual birthright of every human being endowed with soul and spirit, whatever religion he may be. Such an individual is a Christ man. On the other hand, those who choose to ignore the Christ principle within themselves, the Christos, die unregenerate, regardless of baptism or sacraments or belief in any dogma. So in order to follow this explanation, one must bear in mind the real archaic meaning of two terms. One is Christos with an E and Christos with an I. The former means certainly more than merely a good and excellent man, while the latter was never applied to any one living man, but rather, as was mentioned, to every initiate at the moment of his second birth and resurrection as an initiate. So he who finds the Christos within himself and recognizes the latter as his only way becomes a follower of the apostle of Christ, though he may never have been baptized nor even met a Christian, still less call himself one. The word Christos with an E existed ages before Christianity was heard of. It is found used from the 5th century BC by Herodotus, by Aeschylus, and other classical Greek writers, and the meaning of it being applied to both things and persons. So in terms of what these symbols mean for us and how we live our lives, bringing it to a practical side, the question is, how can we resurrect the inner spiritual man within us? And how can we make these ideals living realities in our life? By practicing theosophy and inculcating universal brotherhood as much as we can. It has been said that theosophy is who theosophy does. It often surprises people to learn and discover the tremendous and constant emphasis on altruism, selflessness, service, ethics, morals, and purity of life, which permeates all theosophical teachings. It would be no exaggeration to say that the philosophy and system of ethics propounded by H.P. Blavatsky and in the teachings of theosophy is just as grand, crystal clear, inspiring, challenging, noble, uncompromising, and emphatic as that presented by Buddha, Krishna, Jesus, or any of the other great saviors and teachers, if not even more so. Of course, there is really only one true system of ethics, that of absolutely unselfish service and unhesitating self-sacrifice for the sake of our fellow man. Altruism is the keynote of theosophy and the cure for all ills. This is what the real founders of the theosophical movement promote as its first object, universal brotherhood. The ethics of theosophy are more important than any divulgement of psychic laws and facts, HPB said, adding that the latter relate wholly to the material and evanescent part of the septenary man. But the ethics sink into and take hold of the real man, the reincarnating ego. We are outwardly creatures of but a day, but within we are eternal. Learn then well the doctrines of karma and reincarnation, and teach, practice, promulgate that system of life and thought which alone can save the coming races. Do not merely work for the Theosophical Society, HPB said, but through it for all of humanity. A couple more thoughts along the lines of practical theosophy, practical occultism, is that from the Key to Theosophy, HPB said, our philosophy teaches us that the object of doing our duties to all men and to ourselves last is not the attainment of personal happiness, but of the happiness of others. The fulfillment of right for the sake of right, not for what it may bring us. Happiness, or rather contentment, may indeed follow the performance of duty, but it is not and must not be the motive for it. Duty itself is that which is due to humanity, to our fellow men, to our neighbors and family, and especially that which we owe to all those who are poorer and more helpless than ourselves. Theosophy promotes the following four principles called the Four Golden Links: universal unity and causation, human solidarity, the law of karma, and reincarnation. And these are the four golden links. These are the four links of the golden chain which should bind humanity into one family, one universal brotherhood. In sociology, as in all branches of true science, the law of universal causation holds good. But this causation necessarily implies as its logical outcome that human solidarity on which theosophy so strongly insists. If the action of one reacts on the lives of all, and this is the true scientific idea, then it is only by all men becoming brothers and all women sisters, and by all practicing in their daily lives true brotherhood and true sisterhood, that the real human solidarity, which lies at the root of the elevation of the race, can ever be attained. It is this action and interaction, this true brotherhood and sisterhood in which each shall live for all and all for each, which is one of the fundamental theosophical principles that every theosophist should be bound, not only to teach, but to carry out in his or her individual life. And this can be attained only by inculcating those higher and nobler conceptions of public and private duties, which lie at the root of all spiritual and material improvement. In every conceivable case, each person himself must become a center of spiritual action, and from him in his own daily individual life must radiate those higher spiritual forces, which alone can regenerate his fellow men. It is this very law of karma which gives strength to all that has been said. The individual cannot separate himself from the race, nor the race from the individual. The law of karma applies equally to all, although all are not equally developed. In helping on the development of others, the theosophist believes that he is not only helping them to fulfill their karma, but that he is also, in the strictest sense, fulfilling his own. It is the development of humanity, of which both he and they are integral parts, that he has always in view, and he knows that any failure on his part to respond to the highest within him retards not only himself, but all. in their progressive march. By his actions, he can make it either more difficult or more easy for humanity to attain the next higher plane of being. But what is the duty of a theosophist to himself? H.P. Blavatsky said, to control and conquer through the higher, the lower self, to purify himself inwardly and morally, to fear no one and not save the tribunal of his own conscience, never to do a thing by halves. That is, if he thinks it's the right thing to do, let him do it openly and boldly, and if wrong, never to touch it at all. And lastly, a letter from one of the masters, quoted by HPB in 5 Messages to the American Theosophists, said, "There is no happiness for one who is ever thinking of self and forgetting all other selves. The universe groans under the weight of such action, karma, and none other than self-sacrificial karma relieves it. Do as the gods do when incarnated. Do. Feel yourselves the vehicles of the whole of humanity, mankind as part of yourselves, and act accordingly." It's by following these principles of universal brotherhood, karma and reincarnation that we can embody the idea of resurrection or rebirth for ourselves. And as we progress along the path, we will come to the point of, becoming initiated into the secret knowledge. We're on this journey of spiritual enlightenment. And so with that, we'll just open it up for questions and comments for the rest of our time. Let's stop sharing. Yeah, go ahead, Herb.
But you've laid a lot out there, and it tells me when you started, you were thinking about, well, this is for the Christians, one life. But that's an example, is what I got out of your whole talk. That each one of us is progressive according to our own actions and capabilities and so forth, from life to life to that point. And I guess my question is, how when we're embodied, when I look at you, I see a personality. I don't see the individuality, which is behind that personality, which goes from life to life. But at least I have an idea of a separate person. But what happens when we are not embodied anymore? Do we gamble an egg? Do we go back to that? How do we do that?
It seems like you're asking what happens after death. How does this spiritual and how does this evolution take place? Yeah, well, Theosophy says we live many lives because it takes more than one to learn all this. And, at the death of the physical body, it disintegrates and the consciousness becomes centered elsewhere. And Theosophy says that there's a period of the lower nature also disintegrating because it's material, it's not the permanent individuality. So those aspects which don't go from life to life do slowly disintegrate, and that matter, that material is return to the system from which it came, like in our case, the earth chain. And we do, but we and then the individuality goes into this bliss, this rest assimilation period called Devachan. But the matter that we formerly used hasn't gone away, and it's part of what, along with the skandhas, elements of the personality from the life just lived, draw us back into incarnation to meet the karma. And so this process goes on, and we continue to learn, as Theosophy says, first by, natural impulse, and then by self-induced and self-devised efforts. And since we're at the plane of mind, we're aware of ourselves, and consciousness has a much larger range of use, because Theosophy says we can open up sort of the consciousness to the higher mind, and we are seven principled beings, so higher mind, soul, spirit are among those, and those are, we can most easily see those in the great teachers of humanity, the adepts and teachers who present this same philosophy, throughout time periodically, and who live that life and are exemplars and show humanity the symbol, Jesus's life symbolizes such a great teacher who has been awakened to the spiritual, who we really are. That which is permanent goes from life to life. We're all sparks of that one sun, I guess.
So you just said as an example of a person who has gone through that process that we're going through now. But if we don't find Christ within us, we're not going to find Christ. That's what I got out of your message.
Yeah, the Christos principle stands for the spark of who we really are, our spiritual true selves. So yeah, finding the Christos, the Christ principle within, means awakening to that higher nature and coming into a full knowledge of it. And it says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so to get ready is to, do our duty, to live practically, helping each other. Theosophy says the idea is to raise up the entire mass of matter, not just for ourselves to achieve personal nirvana.
So our body is not limited. We're not limited out. We're limitless, really. So even when we are embodied, that's not who we are either.
No.
When I become unembodied, I am here to make a difference. Whatever little difference I can make, I should make it. And it's not the size of the difference. It's the effort that we put into it that we get measured by our higher selves, I guess.
Yeah, a good analogy is day to day. Like we, rest and assimilate at night, and the next day we live like a new life. Every day is like a new life, so to speak. But over the course of many days, we've learned a lot.
So we basically, as far as the body goes, we die every night. And then in the morning, we get a dream state and so forth. And
it's a good analogy for sure.
Yeah. That puts a lot of responsibility on us as well as opportunity.
Yes, for sure. that's part of the reason this wisdom gets brought forth periodically by the great teachers of mankind, is that we've forgotten who we really are. They say, you know, we've become mired in the personality and material concerns, and, you know, spirituality has been obscured, and we've forgotten who we really are, which is like this infinite potential. And so if that idea isn't brought forward, if that vista isn't expanded, if that sphere isn't made larger, then we might, you know, be stuck much longer. You know, we won't have the chance to progress if the idea isn't brought forward, at least. But we have to do the work. Nobody can do it for us. And this student found it interesting that the idea of the egg, you know, because it's so heavily associated with Eastern rebirth, but that the form of everything is kind of spheroidal. And I guess if one was to take, like, you know, we don't look spheroidal, but the idea that for those who are clairvoyant and can see an aura, it's usually like surrounding the person is sphere, you know, circular or oviform. So when we think of it like that, the idea that, you know, the egg and the sphere is so fundamental, it, you know, there's just so many ways you can look at it. It becomes very, very interesting. Like maybe you know, ideas are, if we could see on the inner planes, maybe they would be have some shape or something. I like to like try to think like that, at least try and see where else it could be applied.
Well, you're talking about the egg. I guess in the many eons ago, we were egg-born, as I understand the philosophy, and we something holds together while we're not embodied. Whatever we have perfected in life, we're that unembodied part holds together. I can think of nothing more than an egg. You got that part of you that is there, and you are not. You can use what you had and what you learned in life to assimilate it, but that's what we're going to return with when we come back, and from life to life. And we're just here a short period of our total existence, which never ends, really. No beginning and no ending.
Yeah, it said we may have lived thousands of lives. That puts it into
It's very difficult
context.
not possible to totally wrap your head around it, I guess, other than just like the first principle says, you know, it never was and never will shall not be. You always exist, and you can, by knowledge of correspondence, figure a lot of things out. But you're always going to have that part of you and part of nature, part of everything that you not be able to completely close that egg up, if you will.
Yeah, and Easter obviously is the time when spring and everything's like, nature's like fully in bloom. And so the idea is that if you've been gestating these spiritual ideas, these you know, like New Year's resolutions or so forth, and they become, when they fully blossom, you know, it's or, you know, when we commit to the spiritual life and these vistas open up, it's going to be like spring. It's going to be like more than we, you know, you could imagine in the winter. The warmth, the, you know, the energy, the vitality of nature, just it's symbolic.
Yeah. We
So,
kind of touched on some cycles too when you mentioned spring and so forth. Every season there's there's a season, a reason for every season, if you will.
Right. What were you gonna say, Cyrus?
So I can say, so, once Mr. B.P. Wadia said that we should strive to become temples of a living God, and in order to do that, to really clean the temple is cleaning up all our passions, all the lower tendencies. Would symbolically would Easter represent that as well, as we, even in life, as we try to, step by step remove all impurities within us. Can we say that Easter also represents that renewal, the self renewal as well?
Yes, because renewal, rejuvenation isn't possible without purification, and those are essentially the practical theosophical principles talked about at the end, which is treating others as if we're truly one family, if we're truly one, as if the other person is oneself, acting for all. And so purification is a big part of that. And the whole meaning of the name Christ, or this Christ principle, Christos with the E, meant more than just a good man. It was someone striving, but he wasn't fully awakened, fully purified yet, until had discovered that Christ principle within, the Christos with the I. So it could be looked at from many different traditions or points of view, that purification is definitely required before the blaze of the spiritual can shine forth, so to speak. The lower nature has to be purified, and that way it'll align with the higher, allowing that light from the spiritual to shine through into the material plane where we are struggling.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, so Easter primarily, symbolically, Easter is primarily the journey of the soul, right? In many ways, and it seems to me as though the concept must have existed eons before Christianity, right? I mean, if the whole symbol of the path, so to speak, that we take towards self-perfection is as old as evolution itself, then the concept of Easter was, is probably as old as that as itself, right? Because a lot of it is, even sometimes in theosophical literature, it's talked about the association with Christianity, but if you look at a deeper meaning, it's always existed.
Yes, yeah, for sure. I mean, it looks like the Christians basically borrowed all of their, holidays, and even perhaps the life of Jesus to symbolize. I mean, it falls in line with these other traditions, whether I tried to bring that out a little bit, whether it was Hindu or Egyptian, or even just a little snippet from the Norse tradition. These are elements that are among all of them. So Easter, stands as the ascendancy of spirit over matter, over death, the perfected life, the risen up. I mean, it's even got the idea of risen, like to raise up matter. So, and to raise up, our whole nature to, transform it, purify and transform it. So I think it was, where HPV talks a lot about the Christian tradition, it's because she was primarily, the audience she first came to was
Yeah.
mostly Christian, and she was trying to like show even within that tradition these universal ideas. So yeah, for sure is as old as, you know, there are records to show.
Well, we certainly have given us a lot to think about today. And we will bring it to a close whenever you want, whenever you take this time to do that.
Yeah,
And go to the next, which is a light on the path. We're gonna
take a break.
A little bit, take a little break now. Thank you for joining us, and the person who was there. Yeah, I hope we didn't lose you. And join us again. We're here at 11 o'clock every Sunday. So thank you again. So we'll take a break and turn the recording off and